The courtroom chuckled. The judge? He didn't even hide it. Just another inner-city kid trying to talk smart. But when that teen reached into his folder and slid a framed degree across the bench, nobody was laughing anymore. This ain't a story about second chances. It's about what happens when you give yourself the first one. Desmond Carter was 17 and already used to being underestimated. He learned a long time ago that in a courtroom, they didn't see his face. They saw a file, a hoodie, an address, a charge. This time, it was assaulting a teacher. The teacher had grabbed Desmond first. The hallway cameras were conveniently not working. The white substitute had a bruised ego and a twisted wrist. Desmond had a reputation for not backing down. That was all the school board needed. When they cuffed him, his mother, Tracy Carter, stood frozen in the doorway of their apartment. She didn't cry. She just nodded once, like she knew this day would come, like she had run out of ways to shield him. Desmond's father? Gone years ago. His brother Leon was on parole. His sister Taylor worked double shifts at a diner and still texted him goodnight, like she was tucking him in. Desmond wasn't angry. Not anymore. He was done wasting energy trying to prove to people that he wasn't what they assumed. Now he just listened, learned, and waited. The courtroom was full that day. Whispers, side eyes, reporters. Everyone wanted to see what the violent teen would say. The prosecutor was an older white woman, sharp-tongued and slick. She listed off Desmond's school record like it was a rap sheet. 2 suspensions, 1 fight, 1 teacher injury. They made him sound like a future convict, not a kid defending himself. Desmond sat beside his public defender, who looked like he hadn't eaten or slept in 48 hours. He kept mumbling, "Just take the deal. You'll be out by 25. Desmond didn't reply. He just watched the judge. Judge Halverson, white, late 60s, sharp glasses, and an even sharper smirk. He looked down at Desmond like he was watching a rerun, like he already knew how the movie ended. When the judge said, "Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Desmond stood. The courtroom fell silent. He wasn't tall, wasn't loud, didn't raise his voice. He just said, "Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to speak on my own behalf." Halverson blinked, then chuckled. It wasn't even subtle. "You're not a lawyer, son. This isn't high school debate club. You really think you can represent yourself?" Desmond didn't flinch. "No, sir. I don't think I can. I know I can." The courtroom laughed. So did the judge. Until Desmond reached into his folder and pulled out a stack of papers. Detailed, labeled, statutes, precedents, affidavits, motions, and on top, a letter of acceptance from Columbia University School of Law. Stamped, signed, recent. "I've been studying law for 4 years," he said. "I passed the LSAT last spring." Dead silence. Judge Halverson raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. Desmond continued. "My public defender told me to take a plea, but I didn't assault my teacher. He grabbed me first. I push him off. That's not battery. That's defense. And under Section 35.15 of the Penal Law, if a person reasonably believes force is necessary to defend themselves from unlawful physical force, it's not a crime." He flipped the page. "I have witness statements. 3 classmates who saw what happened. And I subpoenaed the school maintenance log that shows the hallway camera hadn't been serviced in 3 months." Now the courtroom wasn't laughing. Even the prosecutor was squinting at Desmond like she'd never seen him before. That night, Desmond sat across from his mom in the living room. Neither of them said anything for a long time. Then she whispered, "Where'd you even learn all that?" Desmond shrugged. "Same place I learned to survive." She smiled for the first time in weeks. A tired, proud smile. Desmond wasn't surprised when the judge called for a recess. The court clerk shuffled awkwardly. The prosecutor whispered furiously into her assistant's ear. The public defender gave Desmond a look that was somewhere between shock and guilt, like he just realized how badly he'd underestimated the kid sitting next to him. Desmond sat still. He didn't gloat, didn't smile, just waited, because he knew how this worked. He remembered exactly when he started reading law textbooks. He was 13. Leon had just gotten locked up again, some dumb probation violation. The system was a revolving door for black boys in their neighborhood. One wrong step, and it snapped shut behind you. Desmond sat in the visiting booth across from his brother and asked, "Didn't your lawyer fight it?" Leon had laughed bitter. Public defender didn't even look at the file. Just told me to plead out. Desmond didn't like that answer, so he started reading. Every night. At first it was just Google, then old books from the library, then forums, then actual case law, statutes, defense strategies. No one taught him. He taught himself. By 16, he could quote criminal codes better than half the lawyers on TV. By 17, he knew how to win in court. He just hadn't had to do it until now. When court resumed the next day, energy was different. Judge Halverson didn't laugh. Desmond walked the stand like he'd done it before, because in his mind he had 100 times. Late at night, practicing in the mirror, running through objections, memorizing rules of evidence. The prosecutor tried to rattle him. She questioned his credibility, mocked his YouTube education, tried to make him slip. But Desmond didn't blink. "Were you present when Mr. Taylor initiated contact with me?" he asked calmly during cross. She stuttered. "No, So your claim that I instigated the altercation is based on secondhand information?" She looked at the judge. "Objection!" Desmond didn't wait. "Withdrawn," he said, flipping to the next tab. "Let's talk about the school's camera maintenance report." The gallery leaned forward. People whispered names. A few even started taking notes. Desmond laid out the timeline. Teacher reports Desmond assaulted him, camera footage unavailable. But logbook shows camera hadn't worked in weeks, and 3 students gave written statements saying the teacher shoved Desmond first. He submitted everything. Clean, labeled, dated. By the end of it, even the court reporter looked impressed. Judge Halverson called another recess. Desmond walked past the prosecutor's table. She didn't look up. In the hallway, he sat beside his mom. She gripped his hand. "You know what they see when they look at you?" she asked quietly. He nodded. "A problem?" "No," she said, shaking her head. "They see what they fear. A smart, young black man who doesn't flinch. That scares them." Back in court, Halverson adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat. "Mr. Carter," he said slowly, "it's clear you've done your homework. However, this court does not encourage self-representation, especially in juvenile cases." Desmond stood up. "Respectfully, sir, I requested better representation. I was told to plead guilty. That's not defense. That's surrender." Halverson stared at him. Something in his eyes flickered. Irritation, maybe respect. "I'm granting your motion to submit the witness affidavits. The maintenance report is also admissible, and I'll allow your request to cross-examine your accuser. But I warn you, I understand," Desmond said. Halverson didn't finish the sentence. He just nodded. Mr. Taylor, the teacher, took the stand. Middle-aged, balding, nervous. He repeated the same story he told the school. Desmond got angry, raised his voice, struck him. Desmond walked slowly to the center of the courtroom. "Mr. Taylor, did you grab my arm during our argument?" Taylor blinked. I might have touched. Did you initiate physical contact?" "I don't recall." Desmond raised a maintenance report. "Were you aware the camera above our hallway hadn't worked for months?" Taylor looked at the prosecutor. "Please answer question." "No," Taylor muttered. Desmond pulled out 3 printed affidavits. "These are statements from your students." One says, and I quote, "Mr. Taylor shoved Desmond first and told him to watch his tone. Does that refresh your memory?" Taylor swallowed. "No further questions," Desmond said. The judge recessed for the day. Final arguments would be tomorrow. Desmond sat quietly with his mom. The hallway buzzed with voices. Reporters asking for interviews, random people shaking his hand. Even the court clerk giving him a thumbs up. He ignored them, because it wasn't over yet. That night, Desmond reviewed everything again. Notes, affidavits, penal codes. At 2 a.m., he finally let himself close his eyes. His mom walked in, kissed his forehead. "You're not just defending yourself," she whispered. "You're defending every boy who didn't get the chance to." The next morning, Desmond showed up before anyone else. He wasn't dressed in a suit, just a clean polo, pressed khakis, and worn-out sneakers. Same kid, same courtroom. But something had shifted. He wasn't being judged anymore. He was being watched. Inside, reporters filled the back row. A few defense attorneys from other courtrooms drifted in and sat quietly. Even a judge from another circuit slipped into the gallery, trying not to draw attention. The courtroom wasn't used to this kind of energy. A 17-year-old defending himself against the system? It didn't happen. But Desmond Carter didn't wait for permission. He stood, adjusted the microphone, and opened his binder. "Your Honor, I'd like to begin my closing statement." Judge Halverson nodded once, hands folded. Desmond took a breath, then started. He didn't beg. He didn't preach. He broke it down like case law. He laid out the facts. A verbal argument escalated. A teacher grabbed a student. The student reacted. No camera footage. 3 eyewitnesses backing Desmond. A pattern of disciplinary bias against black students at the school. He didn't just defend himself. He indicted the entire system. Without yelling. Without anger. Just facts. "You said I don't belong in a courtroom," Desmond said, looking directly at Judge Halverson. "But I do, because this is where the truth is supposed to matter. Not your zip code. Not the color of your skin. Just the truth." The silence in the room wasn't polite. It was heavy, like everyone had just realized how wrong they'd been. The prosecutor followed, but her words fell flat. She repeated the same points. tried to paint Desmond as a repeat offender, called him combative, disrespectful, a threat to authority. Nobody leaned forward to hear her. Not anymore. Judge Halverson recessed for deliberation. It was supposed to take hours. It took 20 minutes. Everyone stood. When he walked back in, the room felt like it was holding its breath. Halverson didn't look at the prosecutor. He didn't look at the public defender. He looked directly at Desmond. This court finds a defendant, Desmond Carter, not guilty on all charges. A collective exhale. A single sob from the back, Desmond's sister, Taylor. Halverson continued. Furthermore, the court acknowledges the defendant's exceptional self-representation and has taken judicial notice of his submitted documentation, including his law school acceptance. A pause. He cleared his throat. Mr. Carter, I've served on this bench for 31 years. I've never seen what I saw today. Desmond didn't smile. Thank you, Your Honor. After court, Desmond was swarmed. Journalists, community activists, even a few students from his high school who'd skip class just to watch the trial. He didn't stop to talk. Didn't pose for pictures. He walked out with his mom, one hand still holding the acceptance letter. On the courthouse steps, someone asked, "What are you going to do next?" He looked at them. Be ready, then kept walking. That evening, back at home, his family cooked like it was Thanksgiving. His aunt brought ribs. Cousins showed up with macaroni, peach cobbler, cornbread. The living room was packed. The news was on, and Desmond's name was trending. But Desmond sat quietly in his room. He wasn't thinking about the case. He was thinking about all the other kids still stuck in holding cells with no voice. No books. No binder full of proof. Later that night, his mom came in with a plate. He hadn't eaten. "I didn't know you applied to Columbia," she said softly. Desmond looked up. "Didn't think I'd get in." "But you did." "Yeah." She sat on the edge of his bed. "When your father left, I was scared. Thought maybe I couldn't do it by myself. Thought I'd fail you." Desmond shook his head. "You didn't." "I didn't raise a boy," she said. "I raised a man." He didn't say anything. She kissed the top of his head, then left him alone with the silence. The next morning, Desmond got a letter in the mail from Columbia. It wasn't just a reminder about his acceptance. It was a scholarship. Full ride. Academic and personal merit. Desmond read it 3 times, then folded it gently and slid it behind the frame of his brother Leon's photo on his dresser. By Friday, social media had made him a symbol. People were calling him the teen attorney. Hashtags, memes, interview requests. But Desmond didn't answer any of them, because this wasn't about going viral. It was about rewriting the rules. He texted his sister, "We're not done yet." Desmond Carter could have disappeared. Could have cashed that scholarship, moved to New York, and never looked back. That was what everyone expected. The boy who beat the courtroom. Gone. Another headline. Another black success story they'd trot out during speeches. Then forget. But Desmond had other plans. He spent the next month visiting schools across the city. Not for press. To listen. He sat in on detentions. Met kids who hadn't touched a textbook in weeks. Talked to counselors buried under 100 students each. Heard stories that sounded way too familiar. Teachers calling students aggressive. Resource officers roughing up 13-year-olds. Cameras that only seemed to break when the footage could help. He made a list. Names. Incidents. Patterns. He wasn't just collecting stories. He was building a case. Then he started showing up to board meetings. He wasn't invited. Didn't matter. He signed up for public comment. Waited patiently. Then laid out everything. One night, he read aloud the names of 5 black boys suspended in a single semester for attitude. The board shuffled papers. Next week, he brought emails, real emails, from teachers and staff using words like uncontrollable, threatening, too confident. He didn't raise his voice. Just let the silence fill in what they were too afraid to say out loud. They called his mother, asked her to tell him to stop. She said, "He doesn't answer to me anymore. He answers the truth." It didn't take long before Desmond got his first real threat. An anonymous letter slipped on the front door. No return address. Just one line. Know your place. He didn't show it to his mom. Just folded it. Wrote one word on the back. Here. Then pinned it above his desk. One afternoon, he got a call from Ms. Elaine Brooks, an attorney with the local ACLU chapter. She'd been watching the trial. Said she wanted to meet. They sat at a diner in West End. She brought a thick folder. "I've got 6 open complaints against your school district," she said. "All racial bias. All stalled." Desmond flipped through the pages, reading silently. She added, "I heard what you did. I want you to help me." He looked up. "I'm not a lawyer." She smirked. "Not yet, but I've worked with enough of them to know who's worth betting on." That summer, Desmond interned at her office. Not for school credit, not for money, for strategy. He read real case files, sat in on depositions, helped draft statements. Learn how to push change without a gavel. Elaine taught him how systems resist people like him, and he taught her how people like him don't wait to be welcomed in. Meanwhile, his court case kept echoing. A viral clip of his closing statement hit 3 million views. A podcast called him the future of legal activism. He still ignored it all, because he hadn't earned anything until the system he beat started to crack. Then one day, a letter arrived, thick envelope, official seal. The judge, Halverson. Desmond opened it slowly. Inside, a handwritten note. You proved me wrong. Don't stop now. If you need a recommendation, I owe you that much. No apology, but it didn't matter. Desmond didn't want an apology. He wanted access. And now he had it. That night, he sat down at his desk, pulled out his binder, the same one he used in court. He flipped to a blank page, labeled it, Next Fight. He wrote a single line underneath, Leon's record, because if he could beat one case for himself, he was damn sure going to fight one for his brother. He met with Elaine again, told her everything, how Leon's probation officer never showed up, how the judge didn't listen, how the plea was forced. She listened quietly, then nodded. Let's get his file. Desmond didn't sleep much that week. He was chasing paperwork, old transcripts, arrest logs, phone records. He contacted Leon's former public defender, who barely remembered the case, found inconsistencies, unfiled motions. By Friday, he handed Elaine a folder. This is everything, he said. She scanned it. This is a strong appeal. Desmond shook his head. Not appeal. Overturn. 2 weeks later, they filed. The case was reopened. Desmond sat next to Leon in court, this time as a legal assistant, not a defendant. The same judge who locked his brother up now had to listen as Desmond walked through each misstep, each failure in due process, each buried piece of evidence. And when it was over, Leon walked out free. That night, Desmond stood on the same steps where he once walked out alone, now beside his brother. No crowd, no cameras, just freedom. A year later, Desmond Carter didn't walk across a high school graduation stage. He walked across a courtroom. This time, he wore a suit. And this time, he wasn't the one on trial. He stood beside a black teen named Jalen Ward, accused of disrupting school activity because he raised his voice after a teacher called him too urban. Desmond didn't say much during the hearing. He handed over case law, pointed out bias in the school's conduct history, and stayed quiet while the judge reviewed the files. Then finally, case dismissed. Another kid walked out free. Another kid who wasn't broken by the system. And Desmond didn't even flinch. He wasn't practicing law yet. Still had years of school ahead. But Elaine let him shadow her full-time now. Called him her ringer. He sat in on discrimination suits. Helped prepare young defendants. Built out a legal education program for teens coming out of juvie. It was called Fifth Period because it happened right after school in the gym with pizza, notebooks, and open Q&A. Every Thursday, Desmond showed up and sat on the edge of a folding table while 10 to 15 black boys and girls asked real questions. What happens if you don't show up to court? Is it true cops can't search your backpack without permission? Why do they always put us on probation so fast? He didn't sugarcoat, didn't preach. He just answered, with clarity, with facts, with power. One evening, after a long session, a kid named Marquis walked up and said, "Yo, when I get older, I want to do what you do." Desmond looked him dead in the eyes. "Nah, don't do what I do," he said. "Do it better." Meanwhile, the city started noticing. Desmond's name showed up in think pieces, on school board petitions, in community roundtables. They called him the reformer, the teen legal prodigy, the kid who taught himself the system so he could break it open. But Desmond never got comfortable. He'd seen too many headlines fade, so he kept going. By 20, he was at Columbia. Books, case briefs, exams. It wasn't easy, but he'd already done harder things. His professors tried to keep up. Some couldn't. He joined the Black Law Students Association, but he also formed his own circle. 10 other students from working-class neighborhoods. Kids who didn't grow up knowing anyone with JD. Kids like him. They called themselves the Unseen 10. And every week, they trained together. Mock trials, case reviews, system challenges. One goal, go back and protect the places that raised them. In his second year, Desmond published a legal journal entry that went viral across law circles. Defense is resistance. How the system weaponizes silence against black youth. It was raw. It was factual. And it tore apart the myth of equal justice. He got a call from a senior partner at a corporate firm. She offered him a 6-figure summer internship. He turned it down the same day. Because corporate law didn't need him. Kids like Marquis did. Then one fall afternoon, Desmond visited his old high school. The principal had changed. New leadership. They were trying. Desmond sat in the auditorium with 300 students. He told them everything. From the arrest, to the trial, to the laugh, and the letter. When he was done, nobody clapped. They just stood, and one kid raised his hand and asked, "If they never laughed, would you have still done all this?" Desmond thought for a moment. Then he answered, "Probably not. But sometimes the disrespect becomes a reason you rise." The last page of his binder, the one labeled Next Fight, now had a list. End juvenile solitary confinement, expand fifth period of 5 cities, create a database of biased educators, train youth in legal literacy, overturn 6 more wrongful school expulsions, start his own firm. Carter Justice Initiative, he wasn't just offending now, he was building. Desmond Carter never got the apology he deserved. The judge never called again. The school never admitted fault. The prosecutor retired without a word. But that didn't matter, because Desmond didn't need an apology. He got what he came for, access, and he used it to tear the locks off the doors behind him,